All right, I'm back here, and we're heading into the top 8. But first, Honorog wants to try and never be invited back to Nerd Rage again, so he's got some little skit planned. Oh.
All right, Joe. Sharks versus Goblins. Square up!
You just happen to have that
buddy.
handy?
Let's go, Joe. Come on.
That was just in your closet?
I'm ready.
What?
Shark Typhoon for life. Let's go. Oh, it is incredibly hot in here. Oh, God. Get me out. Oh. Guys, I think I was eaten by a shark. Woo!
I think if you keep that up for like the whole round, then I think we can give you a lot of credit and probably like a bonus. But as it is, you just bailed immediately. So I don't even know what.
This was incredibly not worth it. I'll tell you that much.
Well, how long were you standing in that thing before coming back on camera?
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, it was like 15 minutes.
Woo!
And he wanted to keep that as a surprise for you guys and for me. And there it was. Didn't I guess if it was a shark related thing? I did. It was say that.
Definitely shark related.
Yeah.
The buildup was just unreasonable, and that shows. No, it's. I saw this thing and I was like, all right, I got to do it because Shark Typhoon is just that great. But yeah, where are we now in terms of the tournament? What's going on?
Well, we're getting ready for top 8. I believe the last matches are done, so we're gonna have our bracket once it's ready, and we can go over it. In the meantime, I could have had a goblin costume. And really, it would have just been like, or some kind of, marine character with a trident that goes hunting after sharks.
Oh gosh, no.
Okay, so it sounds like the top 8 bracket is ready, and if Honorog's all out of tricks, then I guess we can move into it.
Nothing else left.
Okay, so here we go. Our number 1 seed, Andrew Fiedler, playing Sneaking Show, who we saw earlier a couple times, I think, against Ethan Formicella playing Doomsday. So Doomsday makes it into the top 8 as the 8th seed. So it's going to have to go second in the matchup. Honorog, how are you feeling about that? I imagine that's not a matchup you've observed or played hardly ever.
Yeah, I haven't played it too much, but I am familiar with both of the decks. And
right.
I got to tell you right now that the way Andrew has played, he seems very capable of handling the Sneak and Show deck. I know for a fact Ethan is just a monster with Doomsday. He's been playing this deck back since Underworld Breach was legal and has been grinding it since then. He used to play a lot of Storm, so he's going to definitely know how to, navigate the, the ins and outs of this specific matchup. It's hard to say which deck is actually going to be favored here, but if I had to pick one over the other, I think it would actually be the Doomsday deck because it is base blue-black, and while it doesn't lean on the discard too much, it does definitely have a lot of it can attack the other opposing combo deck from a variety of angles, right? So you've got Thoughtseize effects, you've got Force of Will, you've got Pyroblast in the sideboard. It's definitely going to be close. And also, this deck is blisteringly fast too. It could be as quick as turn 1, Dark Ritual Doomsday, untap, you're dead.
Right.
So
I think that's going to kind of be required. The one thing I worry about here is, unlike some of the other matchups we saw today, a Doomsday past the turn pile is vulnerable here because even if it's immune to counter magic, the player can just die. On Andrew's turn. So that I would vote for Andrew's side in that one, but we'll see how it plays out. Number 4 seed Theodore Jung playing Timur Delver against number 5 Topher Stitson playing Timur Delver Mirror. If we see that match, we can get into the intricacies of the differences in the builds. But on the face of it, I think we just favor the player who goes first in the mirror. We have Patrick Green playing 4-color Snowko as the higher seed against Pedro Pereira playing Bant Miracles. That is likely to be a longer match. And one we saw, I think we saw both those players today. And yeah, that's going to probably come down to Planeswalkers versus, resolving and trying to build up advantage versus Uro. I wouldn't want to have to choose. I think I would pick the Snowko version because the Miracles are probably more awkward and less useful than the target removal on the Snowko side.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Snowko has just also a smattering. If we take a look at Patrick's list in particular, this got a smattering of just must answer spells in the form of, for example, Sylvan Library. The Okos are kind of tricky to handle for the Bant deck. I mean, if you were playing red in Miracles, then it would be easy, just point click Vindicate. But you got Sylvan Library, you got Oko, the one of Jace. Uro is a threat that, while it does get elegantly handled by Swords to Plowshares, there is a little bit of trickiness, just in the sense that you have to go down cards to handle it. And if you don't have the plow immediately for the Uro, which is probably going to be the case in post-board games when you board some of your removal out, it is just pure value escaping Uro from the graveyard. So things to look out for sure.
And then we have Adam Wallace, the 3rd seed, playing Elves against Wataru Yoshimura in 6th seed, playing Death and Taxes. And this is a very traditional Legacy matchup, and it is fairly one-sided, or at least it always was. I don't know if anything's changed dramatically in the last year or two, but this is a matchup where most in-the-know Legacy players would want to be on the Elves side.
Yeah, I think this is just a matchup historically that has been favorable for Elves. I was actually thinking about this exact matchup earlier today, and I was thinking, like, can you explain why it's good for Elves? And I just have to... Like, this is one of the matchups where cards like Thalia, while it is pretty good against, Glimpse of Nature and Natural Order, it's just not good enough to slow the rapid progression of mana development that the Elves deck is capable of. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Adam skillfully leverage, just like the combination of cards that we've seen historically Elves play, like turn 1 Mana Acceleration, maybe turn 2, 3 Glimpse of Nature. Also, let's not forget that D&T doesn't even play Force of Will, so Adam's going to have to play around very few cards, like only Swords to Plowshares potentially in the early turns. Now that doesn't mean that Death and Taxes can't win. We've got cards like Umezawa's Jite, which is going to be A+, but that does take time to develop, and especially when you have Wirewood Symbiote plus Elves, or Quirion Ranger plus Dryad Arbor to block and bounce to sort of mitigate the counters from charging up. It's going to be a rough battle, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it is, and this is a match we're actually going to watch. This is a match that was famously played out several years ago in the finals of a Star City Legacy Open, with I believe Ross Merriam going for the expected win, and which would have been the back-to-back on the weekend, winning both Opens in the old days, and playing Elves versus Death and Taxes. And Ross actually managed to lose the match.
Oh wow!
Which was against all expectations. But yeah, so it's not. No match is 100%. No match is realistically even probably 80%, but certainly the Elf side is favored here.
Yeah.
So, and that's the match we're going to watch. So I suppose we have the actual, in particular, deck list ready to go. There we are. Wataru Yoshimura, Death and Taxes, battled all the way to top 8 and faces a rough matchup. Now, let's see. What do we have? So for removal, in addition to the swords, we also have 2 Palace Jailers. Okay. That, I suppose, helps somewhat.
Ancient Tomb also to accelerate them out. Okay. Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. We have 3 Revokers to shut down some of the Elf tricks.
Right.
But problematically... Well, so I guess, really, the Revoker's big thing is Revoker on Quirion Ranger or Wirewood Symbiote can actually enable Jite to hit. Because, like you said, the problem with Jite, which is great otherwise in the matchup, is that if it's not on the flyer, likely whatever blocks it will just bounce and negate the combat.
Yeah.
So that is... Go ahead.
Yeah. And if I might be a little bit wrong about this, but I'm going to guess that this is MTGO user Yoshi Wata, who has stuck with D&T for a really, 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 really... Let me emphasize this, really long time, and they play this deck extremely well, so I wouldn't be surprised if they know exactly what they need to do on what turn, manage all of their mana perfect. I expect to see nothing but perfection from... Actually, the entire top 8 is just like an excellent caliber tier of player. I think every player in here is a known Legacy grinder, and this is going to be a pretty loaded top 8. We could take a look at Adam's deck one more time, too, if that's an option, but I'm pretty excited to see some really, really good games of Legacy in this top 8.
So, yeah, so here we see the Elves, maybe... So not as... a few hours ago, we saw an Elves list with 4 Allosaurus Shepherds. There's 3 copies here. In this matchup, the uncounterability obviously doesn't matter, but the ability to pump your whole team and swing for the win could come up.
Yeah.
We see the normal Glimpse chain. We see the Archon of Valor's Reach, which can... And this matchup is, I suppose, naming either instants to stop Swords of Plowshares or artifacts to stop hard cast equipment, and then likely immediately getting boarded out.
Yeah, probably.
I guess. and we do have the Regenedus in the board, which can certainly have an impact in the matchup. But that won't be until sideboard games. But we're ready to kick off our top 8 here. So let's go down for game 1.
Yep.
And we are going to have Elves, and Elves on the play, I believe, is where we're going to be watching from.
Nice. And this is an interesting card that has now been added to the Elves deck, printed recently, Once Upon a Time. Powerful enough to be banned in other formats, but in this format, average power level, maybe a little bit better. A good addition. So as the first spell this turn, or this game rather, it's going to be free to cast, and it's going to give the Elves deck the little consistency boost that it needs.
And it does need it, because this hand, if this Once Upon a Time misses, I mean, this hand is fine, but it's not doing a lot.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
There's no threat here. We have the ability to hold off. Like, we have 2 symbiotes, so we can prevent. We're not worried about equipment coming from the other side, but we're not threatening anything right here.
Right. And this is the kind of matchup where you really do kind of just lean in on the power of Glimpse of Nature, and you really do lean in on the power of Natural Order to just like overwhelm your D&T opponent. Now, I think Adam might only actually have 3 copies of Natural Order in his deck. I'm going to take a look real quick just to make sure, but that would incentivize me to mulligan maybe a little bit more, because we won't be able to rely on, Symbiote plus a couple other Elves to draw our ways towards it. Also, Once Upon a Time finds creatures and lands, but it doesn't find the critical sorceries that we're looking for. So that's just another reason to do that. But it looks like Adam's going to keep. I
feel like this really has to hit a Visionary, or Adam's hand is bad. Is really honestly not good at all. So I actually would have been kind of interested in mulling here, but okay, we do hit Visionary, and now our hand is totally fine.
And I was mistaken earlier. I did say that Adam wasn't playing any copies of Crop Rotation, but it looks like he does have one.
So we lead off here on Nettle Sentinel. That is... I'm certainly in no position to criticize here. I think it's interesting, as playing Symbiote first would have led to the Visionary being protected on turn 2. As it is, if Visionary runs on turn 2 and gets swords, again, we're kind of immediately dried up on what we're capable of doing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe the next turn is just going to be double Symbiote instead of the Elvish Visionary, but I could also see one way or the other. I think the point here is that by playing the Nettle Sentinel out, maybe you're dodging removal spell on the first Symbiote. Hard to say, but we'll see how it develops.
Yeah, if the turn 2 plays Visionary, then we're vulnerable to swords. If it's double Symbiote, then we're vulnerable to Revoker. So there's definitely things to worry about both ways. But in playing Nettle Sentinel out, I mean, I totally get that. It's it's going to get in some free damage here.
Ooh, Cradle's a nice pickup. It
is. That is definitely true.
So that should let them ramp into Symbiote Visionary this turn?
Yes, it will. And that is very significant. Although still vulnerable to swords on either one. And so we have the Death and Taxes player with no Mother of Runes, no Swords of Plowshare, no Mother of Runes, no Ether Vial, but on a 7-card hand. So likelihood of swords, I'd say, is higher.
Yep. That's the first thing I'm thinking of too. And then I think the pause on the opponent on Yoshimura's turn was maybe debating whether or not we want to use Swords to Plowshares to get rid of this Nettle Sentinel or not. And
I would be surprised if it was killed.
Me too. Yeah, Nettle Sentinel is probably like lower power compared to some of the other creatures in the deck. Wirewood Symbiote notoriously maybe the strongest or the go-to Swords to Plowshares target. Also, Dryad Arbor there's no shame in killing that either. So we'll see. Maybe the D&T player here is playing patiently and just trying to find the exact moment to fire off this removal spell.
I like the order that was chosen here. Well, I guess there wasn't really a choice, so let me take that back. But yeah, okay. Symbiote goes down, but we have the backup Symbiote in hand, so things should be off and rolling. As just this engine by itself, I mean, isn't going to make huge inroads on the life total, but really can accumulate a lot of cards very quickly. And okay, there was one Thalia Heretic Qatar in the list, and this will make a difference on a lot of things, like Glimpse Change with Heritage Druid. When all your creatures come into play tapped, it's much harder to continue on.
This is probably going to be a game changer. Thalia Heretic Cathar is not only going to stop things like the Verdant Catacombs and the Bayou, but it's also just going to turn off cards like Natural Order. I mean, you could still Natural Order for Crater Hoof maybe the turn after you have like a bunch of creatures in place, so that at least they'll get the pump effect. But the hastiness of Crater Hoof is going to certainly be minimized. Fortunately, with the current board state, it doesn't look like Adam is going to be slowed down too much by this. Like, we'll still be able to bounce the Visionary and redeploy it, but turn 2 Thalia Heretic Cathar off the Ancient Tomb as well is probably one of the best starts that you could go for if you're playing D&T again in this matchup.
Yeah, it's nice. It is certainly. I mean, it's not gonna. This is not a hand that's going to be super powerful against, like you're saying, but it is fine. We'd like to see. Let's see what can we have for follow up here. I mean, well, any sort of removal on Wired Symbiote would be tremendous. As the Thalia Heretic Cathar stops all the offense here.
Yeah, and notably, the Wirewood Symbiote doesn't have to tap to activate its ability. So even though the board state does look a little bit weird, if there's like exactly maybe land into GT into Equip, the Heretic Cathar is not going to be able to connect because the Wirewood Symbiote can block whichever elf is thrown in the human creature legendary thingy's way.
All right, so
I'm going to ask you a dangerous question that may or may not...
Is this oh, man. So I was thinking Palace Jailer would be a really, really good draw here, as we can wipe out the Symbiote, and that is what's going to happen. So we'll get to your question in a minute.
Yeah.
This will allow a draw. Now, the Monarchy can be stolen here if all the creatures are left on the board and we're willing to sacrifice 2 of them, and that's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
Instead, the Visionaries picked up, so the Monarchy was locked in for the turn. That is a Palace Jailer is such a cool card, and it seems overly strong, but I mean, it's a white card that draws cards. I mean, yeah, and it's a Faceless Switcher removal spell. Still, it's white. Like, give them a break. They need something, I guess. Okay, what's your question?
Well, my question was, well, your point sounds a lot more like sophisticated. I was just going to ask, to split or not split the planes, what camp are you in? I know the D&T community has a lot to say about this, and I want to hear it from you personally. If you were playing D&T, what would you do? Okay,
well, I think there's no bearing in the deck as far as snow or not snow, and there's no way to get punished for playing snowlands. So in open deck lists, I think I'm playing revised basics all the way.
Hey.
I guess is if there are, let's see, what even can matter? What makes the difference as far as that? Like getting predicted? I'm willing to live with being predicted at higher odds in order to play the lands I want.
There you go. All right. I think a lot of D&T players are shaking your hand and saluting you right now, and maybe some of them are just like, raising their fists. But looking at the board state right now, what's kind of interesting is, I guess Adam's plan against this Monarchy emblem is to just race, maybe? We can't really throw all of our creatures into the 3-2 and the 2-2 because, well, I mean, then how are we supposed to leverage any of what our deck is going to do?
This is rough. We can't. So we looked like we were going to be in position to be able to just attack with everything and steal the Monarchy. That's no longer the case, as the Flicker Wisp will reset the Palace Jailer. And unlike any other card like this that's ever existed, I think, Palace Jailer doesn't return the creature when it leaves play.
Correct.
So it's just going to pick off another one. And then if combat damage ever happens, then all of them will be returned. But this is a pretty spectacular start for Death and Taxes. And
definitely agree.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to switch sides right now. So we're going to take out one of the Quarian Rangers, fetch up. I guess we're fetching up Dryad Arbor, so we can still get the Monarchy. We can attack with 4 creatures, and the cost of 3 of them, which is a heavy price to pay, but you may have to pay it.
Keeping in mind, though, like, it's not like Adam's. That's exactly what I was going to say, right? Like, this is still, we have top decks. Imagine if we just draw Natural Order right off the top. This is the power of the Elves deck. Like, even though we may have to do the math here to make sure that we can actually connect with all the it's lethal.
Sure it's enough.
But I mean, the cool part is, like, the trample damage will mean that we get our 2 creatures back, and then
I think it's just done.
Super brutal here.
Yeah, if Julian was here, he would have, told us 5 minutes. During the top 8 bracket, Julian would have told us how much damage this attack was going to be for. But for us non-Elves aficionados here, we can just count this up to being a lot, I think.
Yeah. Damage on the stack, lethal.
Yeah.
And this is why I think this matchup is just like so tough too. It's like, this is probably the best start that the D&T player could have asked for. And still, wait, did we just do that? We untapped the Crater Hoof?
Sure.
Ooh, that's all right. That's tricky. I respect that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, because now before we were only attacking for 29 damage, which was lethal. Now it's 40, which is also lethal.
Nice. Mega lethal. Overkill. That's awesome.
And we'll get our creatures back. So that was a pretty jarring turnaround there. And I imagine, given the Death and Taxes was drawing 2 cards a turn, that it would have, I'm not sure that could have come up a turn later and been enough. Maybe it could have, but certainly removal was going to be, flowing. Eventually a Stoneforge or an equipment was going to be found and was going to just be able to start clearing the creatures off the board. But we didn't get that far. Natural Order, Crater Hoof, done. So we'll go ahead and look at the Death and Taxes deck again and see what sideboarding options are available for Wataru Yoshimura. What do we see? We see 2 Cataclysms.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Sanctum Prelate is also a potential option if you're afraid of the game-ending sorceries. Mm-hmm. Council's Judgment isn't really that good. It's a lot of mana, and the payoff isn't really there.
No?
All in all, I don't know. Maybe you have to hope for maybe Cataclysm is actually one of the better cards in the sideboard, just as like a reset the board button. But maybe I have an Aether Vial and like a creature with equipment on it. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what else we would want to bring in. Are there any cards that are notably bad? Maybe Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, gets cut from the main deck?
I think Thalia is not very exciting. It holds off the small attackers, the chip damage, but I don't think that's something we can really be excited about. Maybe we could shave an equipment if we didn't think they were likely to connect anyway.
Yeah, Path to Exile probably going to come in, but the problem is also that, like, you may get rid of something critical like a Wirewood Symbiote, but ramping the Elves opponent is just not ever a feeling that you actually enjoy,
Yeah. No, this is tough. I'm not wild about what we're boarding into, and that's from a position of not being happy where we started, even though that game was very close. I feel like if we're going to take down matches, we really need to, the ones that are close, we need to have them go our way, and that is not how we started. So let's look at so we can actually take a live look in and see how the sideboarding is progressing.
Okay, so 1 Cataclysm in, the double Judgments and the Path to Exile also came in. So that's interesting. We're just kind of saying that, hey, look, we're cutting all the cards that are not good, or rather, maybe it's not like a strict upgrade, but we'll move laterally and at least they'll be better than whatever we're cutting, right? So, for example, the Thalias, we're going to trim some copies of those, and the Judgment might be better because we can actually at least use it to interact with the board in a more meaningful way rather than potentially drawing multiple copies of Thalia, which, if we stumble, would be likely the kiss of death. So this is super sweet.
Palace Jailers came out also. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to switch perspective here and watch from the other side.
This is a rough hand that I'm not 100% sure of. I think we saw Sanctum Prelate, a couple Flicker Wisps, lands, and a Phyrexian Revoker.
Yeah, nothing cheap at all.
Yeah,
so that's tough. That might be thrown back. I really think we're looking at. I know the odds are stacked against us, but what we really want is a removal spell and a Stoneforge Mystic, I think, so we can try and connect with an equipment. Now here we have removal. Cataclysm. Vial is a card that you want to keep. Like, if we Cataclysm and keep land, Vial, Mother of Runes, if we don't draw anything else, okay. And that's reasonable. And maybe the swords will buy us time to get there. Although we'd also have to draw 2 more land.
Yeah.
Or an Ancient Tomb.
That's part of the plan, I guess, right? Like in a bad matchup, sometimes you do need to invoke the luck clause to get there. So we'll see how the game definitely plays out from this point forward. I guess, the most important thing that we want to draw is mana. We do have 1 removal spell, so we can slow down the pace of the game. And I can't imagine that Adam is not going to just try to vomit his hand onto the board as quickly as possible, right? It's just develop that mana advantage and just get above or go under rather the DNT player.
Okay, so we lead off on Savannah into Corian Ranger.
Interesting. I wonder. So if you draw Wasteland here, do you even Wasteland the Savannah?
I don't think you can because of the Cataclysm. Otherwise, what are we talking about? You can't Wasteland the Savannah. There's a Corian Ranger on the board.
Oh, true. Well, okay. Combined with the plow, I guess we could.
You're trying to embarrass me here by getting me to recommend plays that don't make any sense.
Well, you didn't have
Shame
a Goblins outfit, so I kind of had to even the playing field, right?
I didn't know you were going to come out in a balloon shark suit. Sorry. All right, so file 2's up to 1. We drew another Swords of Plowshares. Do we want to kill this Grand Ranger here? The answer is no, and I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, we can wait for more information. The Quarian Ranger right now doesn't do too much by itself. I guess the corner case scenario to consider is like Gaia's Cradle potentially using the Quarian Ranger to tap for mana, but Wooded Foothills, not the same thing. Okay, wow, and Collector Oof going to hit the table now. That makes sense to board it in. It's very good against the Aether Vials and is very good against the equipment.
Would you have been willing to trade your Mother of Runes for the Quarian Ranger here?
That's an amazing question, and I don't know. Mother of Runes is going to be pretty important for getting creatures through, like when you attack, because eventually you're going to have to do that, right?
Because if we eventually Cataclysm, we only get to keep one thing no matter what it is. So I wonder if because we let that Oof resolve, we almost certainly Quarian Ranger would attack. We could Swords the Oof and then trade. Actually, we're being allowed the choice anyway. So this suggests to me that Adam wants the trade. Otherwise, and so you probably cannot block.
Yep. In a zero-sum game like Magic, I mean, you wouldn't attack here unless it was profitable for you, and if it's profitable for them, why would you? Exactly. That makes total sense. So here.
Okay, so by blocking here, I think Death and Taxes is declaring, I know the matchup better than you do, because trading is good for me, and you just walked into it. It also could be depending on the player's hands. Given the hands of each player, it could make sense on both sides to trade. It's hard to really say, but it is interesting because with full information, that play was wrong by one of the players. And even if we can't tell who it is, so someone's still messed up there. Yeah. So no land drop, which means that Cataclysm is delayed and may never even actually happen.
Right. Sword of Fire and Ice, also the draw for Wataru this turn. Not exactly optimal here. We definitely want mana.
Right. Yeah, and we'd also love to save those swords to post Cataclysm, but that's seeming like it might be hard to do. Although there's no real reason you have to. Well, okay, maybe you have to kill a Dryad Arbor.
Yeah. I think one thing that I do like is that we're being patient with the Swords to Plowshares a little bit. That being said, I think one of them is going to be committed to the Collector Oof just to unlock the amount of mana that we can create with this Aether Vial. I think Aether Vial is the beginning of every single happy ending to this match for the D&T player, and Collector Oof doing a great job of stopping it. So we're definitely going to have to hit one of those.
I don't actually agree with you here, because we don't have any creatures in hand at this point, and I think that the ability to save the swords to post Cataclysm is worth so much. I think I'd kill Dryad Arbor here so we don't get natural order next turn, or at least it decreases the chance. I think I let this Oof hit, and I think next turn I'm willing to take all 5 damage.
Interesting. Okay.
Well,
I guess that does make a lot of sense, though, right? Like, if your removal spell for the Collector Oof is actually Cataclysm, then that's also pretty good. In fact, sandbagging the Swords to Plowshares in a world where your opponent, you Cataclysm, right? You get 1 land and the Vial left. Maybe they keep the Collector Oof, which is probably the worst creature of the bunch in terms of the Elves player rebuilding, and that could be a nice little trap to set.
Well, the land drops aren't coming, so it may not matter. Vial stayed on 2, which makes sense, but didn't work out.
Once you take the Vial up, there's no going back,
right?
Unless you flicker wisp it and wait a long time. And in this position, I agree with keeping it on 2 just to see what the top decks are.
Yeah. And we're not killing Dryad Arbor, and that might be the right play, but it is frightening. as land natural order here would be okay. We're not going to do that. We are okay. Allosaurus Shepherd is a recipient of the Swords of Plowshares, and that's surprising to me.
Yeah, I think maybe Wataru is afraid of Gaia's Cradle into pump for. Oh yeah, because you can Gaia's Cradle would tap for 3, and then Dried Arbor is 4, 5, 6. So we could actually just attack for 10 damage. But no, this is going to be natural order.
Yeah.
Instead, which is.
And it's done. Well, it was Council's Judgment. If we go land Council's Judgment, I guess we can get out of this.
Yeah, we have to hit runner here.
Yeah.
Taking up the Vial to 3, most likely happening. Okay, hey, there's the plains. That's the first step. Slamming the swords makes sense. No other way to use our mana this turn.
Ooh, see, I don't agree there either. I think you have to hold the sword, because if we draw the Council's Judgment and kill the Progenitus and then draw another land in Cataclysm, then we're just throwing the sword in the trash. So
we might even end up getting rid of the Aether Vial at that point. Just have Flicker Wisp and Sword of Fire and Ice, that kind of deal.
Oh, you know what? Sure, maybe, but
yeah. Either way, it's gonna be tough. We have to basically draw exactly Council's Judgment right here, right now. All right, let's see the caliber of the D&T god and see if he can actually bust out of this one. I know personally that I would be sweating bullets, but some people, the best players of their respective archetypes are naturally gifted with drawing exactly what they need when they need it. So,
I mean, there are 2 copies in the deck, so we see if we can get there.
Taking up. No, probably not. Jailer's not even in the deck anymore. All right, let's see it. Ha! Okay, that was short-lived, but I guess we can. Yeah, we could still wait. No, equipping doesn't do anything.
No, it doesn't do anything because we only have 2 mana left over. Is there a way to gain a life? We could swords our own. If we draw swords, we could sword the Flicker Wisp and gain 5.
Yeah, that's possibility.
No.
Okay, so we're not okay. Let's Flagstones, which does pair nicely with the Cataclysm, but doesn't do too much against. Yeah, exactly. The 10/10 protection from everything Behemoth. Progenitus actually has phased in and out of the Elves sideboard. I remember distinctly seeing the clip where Ross Merriam just catapults his across the room. Yeah, that's an iconic legacy scene, and there's certain metagames where the card is definitely very powerful. This is going to definitely be one of them where the de facto control deck is actually susceptible to Progenitus. Snow does not play a really good answer. The sweeper of choice is Dead of Winter, not Terminus. If Miracles maybe came back into the metagame, then we could see Progenitus slide out. But yeah, that was, as expected, Elves is going to take this match 2-0. There was a terrific start from game 1, and, I really thought that the Death and Taxes player had a chance there with the turn 2 Thalia Heretic Cathar, the follow-up with the Palace Jailer. But, Natural Order is one hell of a card, and it's the amount of damage that it can output with Craterhoof Behemoth is absolutely ridiculous. So congratulations, Adam, moving on to the top 4. I guess we will take a look at some of the other top 8 matches in the meantime, or maybe take a look at how those are progressing. So just to recap, it looks like we've got the Teamer Delver mirror match going on right now. We've also got the combo mirror match and then the control mirror match. So really, outside of this one pairing that we just saw, it is kind of, the heads up kind of deal.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. The Death and Taxes was so close there in game 1, and then game 2. It's looking back, or even, I don't know. I feel like if the game was played slightly differently, then maybe Death and Taxes could have pulled an advantage there. Like, if we'd swords the Dryad Arbor, then the Natural Order wouldn't have come down. And then if we'd gotten to 4 lands for Cataclysm, Natural Order would have never happened. And so, it's tough. Maybe it would have squeaked through anyway, but certainly, unfortunate for Death and Taxes side, but congratulations to Adam Wallace moving into the top 4. So it sounds like we have another match to go to. I believe it's the 2 versus 7 matchup. Is that right? Okay, let's bring that up. Okay, we have Pedro against Patrick, and we have a lot versus a little.
Yeah, an active Uro, an active Sylvan Library, multiple food tokens to gain life to pay life to draw cards to gain life to. Oh my goodness, this is what I'm talking about. Now I'm kind of curious what the game count actually is here, because I do see Dead of Winter in the graveyard, which might indicate that we're in still the first game. These games are going to be. Yeah, so it looks like it is game one, and this is an extremely grindy matchup, so it's no surprise that it's taken this long, but I really feel like the Snow player has cemented their lead. We'll see exactly how the game progresses, but Teferi is a solid pickup here.
Man, it's tough. You're behind on the board, obviously. You're behind on cards in hand, and you're at 25 life, and you're also behind in life total.
Yeah.
But
feels like you might need a miracle, pun intended.
Okay, so let's see. We're Sylvan Library with 26 life and a couple food. That's bad news. Oko versus Teferi. That's bad news. Speaking from Pedro's side. And we have a Force of Will that we can't use. And no, never mind. We don't have a Force of Will. I was kidding.
Yeah.
This is
rough.
This is exactly what it looks like. This is a game that is virtually over with, but it's game one, so we'll see if Cyborg can change things up. But
ye of little faith, Joe! I'm telling you right now, bam! Slam that entreat the angels off the top right now. I guess Teferi's gonna die. Never mind. Okay, never mind. Keep the tech hidden. Keep the tech secret. We got this. We'll save it for the next game.
There's no secrets here. There's deck lists are open. If there's an entreat there, we should cast it.
All right. Fine, you got me.
Yeah, if there's no counter, and if you said Dead of Winter's gone, and there's no counter, then entreat off the top here is for how many? 8 angels?
That's a lot of angels.
That is a lot.
30 plus points of power.
It's going to have to be, because Uro's about to gain 3 more life plus another 3. Well, it would still be enough at that point. I guess one angel could get turned into an elk, which would cost one of the attacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, chat's mentioning planar cleansing. That's about what we need right now.
Yeah.
Ugin, that would do it.
Goodness gracious. Also, there is one copy of Dead of Winter left in the deck somewhere for Patrick, so we'll see if he's able to pick that up, find that maybe in the case that Pedro finds Entreat the Angels. Slim chance that he'll actually need it. Uro, again, this card is just ridiculous. It does it all. It draws cards, it ends games, it gains life, and it's all castable thanks to Arkham's Astrolabe. So, okay, Brainstorm, not the worst here.
Not being cast in case there's a miracle on top. Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I mean, what else are we going to find, really? If it's a swords, we can take it out pre-combat.
You know what? Maybe I changed my mind. Maybe we knew that there was a Terminus on top, but okay, doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
Narset, admittedly, not even the worst in this situation. Oh, we could have. Did we have enough mana to take down Narset and cast a Terminus? Maybe we did.
There were 10 land in play, so
okay. Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. So in this situation, looking at sideboarding, now this is interesting. Pedro is choosing to cut a number of counter spells, Force of Will, Force of Negation, Dovin's Veto, and it looks like he's just trying to muscle out the Snow deck, which is kind of interesting because I always felt like this is the deck where cards like Force of Will are actually pretty good. Maybe he's counting up the number of Force of Wills that Patrick has, find out what his exposure to the card Veil of Summer is, because Veil of Summer is definitely going to define how this game plays out. I guess we'll take a look at Patrick's list right now to get a better understanding of the nuances here. What stands out to you, Joe?
Well, from the previous, what stood out to me is Pedro looked very confident on his sideboarding there. He did not have to deliberate over any leftover slots. He knew what he wanted to do going into it. So for Patrick's side, okay, I am generally always a fan of removing Force of Wills against non-combo decks. Against a deck with Teferi Time Raveler, and I'm even more willing to let it go. So what do we not need? I don't know that we need Back to Basics. I don't know that we need Swords of Plowshares. So, I don't think we need all the removal, all the forces, or the Back to Basics. So that's definitely some room to play with here.
Yep.
And I think Narset sounds good. Veil sounds good. Carpet. Do we want Savine's Reclamation here? I think we might. That's probably going to be for long, grindy games, right?
Yeah, Savine's is going to be pretty good here. I think the reason we want it is that a lot of the way that the threats are going to die is probably through creature combat of some variation, like Oko v Oko kind of deal. Maybe Council Judgment makes that a little bit awkward, but still being able to buy back Oko, being able to buy back maybe cards like Snapcaster Mage, even in a pinch, Library, Arkham's Astrolabe, the card definitely has a lot of utility. And then also there's the flashback mode here, which basically doubles up, gives you double two CMC3 permanents. That's a lot of value, especially when these permanents individually are haymakers in and of themselves. So,
yeah, I mean, even you could just bring back Uro for a free card and a couple life points if there's nothing else going on. I just think, I mean, in a game where you wouldn't be at all surprised if it lasted past turn 10, this is a card I feel like that you're just going to want every time.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
not a card I've played with very much, but that's my feeling on looking at it. So, yeah, the snow side, I don't know. There's a lot going on here. Uro's looking great. I think this is the side I probably want to be on, the Snowko side.
Mentioned this before. So as we dive into game 2, we see a handful of cantrips and Veil of Summers, which is going to be pretty grindy, which means this ponder is likely either looking for lands or proactive threats to leverage alongside the Veil of Summer. The Titan of Nature's Wrath is going to be an excellent draw here. Will allow us to ramp, gain some life, and set up for taking over the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably not too many times where Uros is a bad play early in the game. It's just it's just like Ghost Spiral and Standard. It's just something that you're very happy to have. It's not as good. It's setting up, but still, it's great. It's very nice. It does. The 3 mana cost does leave you. If it gets countered, then you are kind of vulnerable. But
also countering the 3 mana side of Uro does feel kind of medium sometimes. So
yeah, it's not something you're ecstatic about doing.
Which is kind of something that I've wondered. What is your thought on Escape? That mechanic to me is one of the most busted mechanics that has come out in recent.
It's nice. It is strong. It's been strong in all the formats I've played. Primarily Uro, I guess, outside of Standard. But is it busted and unfair? I don't think so.
Interesting. But I guess for me, the frame of reference is like Underworld Breach, which gave everything. But maybe that's just like Underworld Breach being ridiculously strong.
I loved Underworld Breach. Card was great. Although, interestingly, I was surprised about this, but I saw someone else trying it, and so I took it up also. The Pioneer Lotus Breach deck, now that Lotus Breach is banned, now that Underworld Breach is banned, is still playable.
Yeah, I've seen couple players on it leveraging you make a bunch of mana and then Omniscience or something like that.
Yeah, and I played a bit with it last week and I enjoyed it. And the Lotus Breach version was a deck I was very fond of. I played it in the Pro Tour, but this more somewhat limited version is still totally functional.
Yep.
You're right, giving everything Escape versus Uro having Escape. But yeah, 5 cards out. I mean, fetch lands. I have not played much with Uro. I mean, a little bit in Legacy, but for the most part, my experience with Uro has been in Standard. And with fetch lands, it really does change how the card plays. It's so much easier to bring it back.
Ooh, now this is a big one. Carpet of Flowers is going to generate a lot of mana for Patrick here. I got to say, though, Pedro's hand looks really strong right now. You've got Teferi plus Veil coming in next turn, and then you follow that up with the Jason the Mind Sculptor. I'm a little bit nervous because I wonder how much we are going to be able to leverage this. If we cut all the forces like we saw for that brief moment, then it's possible that Patrick might be able to get something to resolve.
Okay, we're going to lose our Uro here.
Yeah, Spellbomb's pretty solid here.
Yeah, and Koala, we're just burning up the mana here. This is great. I mean, Carpet of Flowers is so nice. And you can see why, because if we drew a carpet this turn on the other side, I mean, we could play both Planeswalkers, and that's just astounding.
Another Veil of Summer, maybe.
For a second, I was like, that's a 1-mana green card. That is a carpet, but no, it is not.
It is not, yeah. Another Veil of Summer is, honestly, the third one might be a bit much.
Yeah, and if with the likelihood that players are boarding out forces, even the second, I mean, I don't know, they definitely go downhill. This is an extreme case of them being near worthless.
Yeah.
And this is a spot where you're really hoping your opponent has a Force of Will, and it doesn't happen.
This is a pretty good situation, though. I mean, from both sides, you can see, right? So on one hand, Patrick is not playing red, I believe, correct? So that means that he's based for base Gwub, whatever Gwub, I'll call it that. Okay. And that means his main out to these kind of permanents is going to be Abrupt Decay. So it is pretty good that we have some number of Veil of Summers in our hand. We do have that sort of insulation there from the first Abrupt Decay and the second Abrupt Decay and the third Abrupt Decay. But there's also this looming threat potentially that Oko comes into play right now and just attacks the Teferi, pretty hard. Yeah.
Or Oko, with 7 cards and access to 6 mana, there's, all kinds of stuff can happen here, and none of it's really very good. And there's not really any defense against any of it except Abrupt Decay. Anything proactive is going to be good here for Patrick.
Even perhaps a Typhoon of Sharks, would you say?
Well, okay, almost everything. Shark Typhoon, not so good against Teferi on the board. Well, I guess you just wait. Carpet Flowers into Shark Typhoon, not so good against Teferi. Uro's just fine. And
Uro's pretty good here. Are you going to be able to...
Yeah, and it can come back.
Yeah, this is pretty great. The Icewind Coatl already forced the Teferi to tick up so that it wouldn't die to just a 1/1 beatdown, but the Uro is almost certainly going to force Teferi to cash in, and
that is a beating.
Talk about backbreaking here. So the Narset shuts down the entire hand here almost, and insult to injury, Joe.
Yeah, this is. We have Little Teferi. Little Teferi is a really good card, right? It looks very insignificant now compared to a Narset, though.
Yeah, it can balance artifacts, enchantments, and creatures, but Planeswalkers is one of the ways that you can take advantage of Teferi.
I believe the Narset missed, but
talk about strange. Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Effect is so strong right now. Oh no!
I guess from this board, you just have to keep ticking up with your Planeswalkers now.
Yeah, you play Jason Fateseal. I think I think I would Fateseal myself in this scenario, but whatever you're going to do, play Jason, plus it is really the only action you can take.
Mm-hmm. We may even enter that weird situation where we actually have to take the L, Jace Brainstorm, put Terminus back on top, and then maybe try to use a Veil of Summer to cycle into it to beat the Uro.
That would be something else.
Yeah.
I guess it is possible, and Teferi will protect the ability to do that.
Desperate times call for desperate
again.
measures. Yeah.
Narset missed again. Is that, or is it choice still being? No, Narset missed both times.
Yeah. Wait, wow. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. I've seen Narset whiff once, but back-to-back whiffs is and the crazy part is that even though Narset whiffed twice, I still feel like Patrick is just insanely ahead in this position because of the passive.
I agree. And so the fetch land wasn't broken in between. So Narset missed, Jace Fatesealed left a fetch land. Patrick had a fetch land in play, didn't break it, which I understand because with those 4 cards that went to the bottom, you probably don't want those back in the deck until at least after you've activated Narset again. And so Patrick did everything he could to maximize the chances that Narset would hit a spell and missed anyway.
Yeah.
And now Thoughtseize comes out. Now, unfortunately, Veil of Summer mana is not available, but I guess in a slight good thing is that there's no good cards worth taking.
Yeah, if I Thoughtseize my opponent and I see double Veil of Summer, double Brainstorm when I've got Narset out, I'm happy. I'm not gonna complain about it,
Okay, this is there goes. Oh boy. Well, that was a good use of some black mana there. And then with the power of Carpet, with plenty of land still untapped, this is... Imagine if the Narset had hit both times.
I know. Then the game would just be so far over. Well, Swords to Plowshares is not that bad of a draw here. It does give you some ways to handle Uro. And Icewind Coatl 2 is the beginning of the comeback. So we'll have to see how both players navigate from this position. I'm kind of curious. That 4 out of 5 cards here. Do you even attack with the Icewind Coatl? I feel like the Narset is just so valuable on this game state that
You want to protect it from a possible quad going the other way.
10,000%, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oh my. Yeah.
And done.
Jason the Mind Sculptor off the top is going to be a game ender here. This was just brutal. This was a good example of why I think Miracles, or one of the reasons why I think Miracles has become harder to play for me personally, is that the onslaught of 2018, 2019, 2020 cards has just been so difficult for the deck to answer, right? You've got great removal spells for creatures in Swords to Plowshares and Terminus, but then when it comes to the non-creature spells, you've got like Oko. You don't even have access to Abrupt Decay, and this specific list wasn't playing Red Blast, so the blue haymakers in Teferi, Oko, Narset, so on and so forth, Uro even are kind of the threats aren't landing up too well. Yeah.
No, they're right. You're exactly right. There's so many threats even from the other mid-range control decks that are hard to deal with, and you just don't have enough answers to them. It's when I was playing the Advanced Snow deck, I don't know, a month or two ago. Yeah, I have the Legend Creature package, which I still felt like I couldn't deal with the threats well enough. Yeah. And this is even worse here, where you have even fewer things. So yeah, that would be a spot where Shark Typhoon would help with this problem.
But definitely kind of tricky. No, you're correct here. I think Shark Typhoon, one of the big things that I like about it is that even though it is kind of expensive in terms of like the mana cost, I do like that it does create creatures that scale with mana. I think the delta between just a 1/1 and a 2/2, it could be the world against Planeswalkers, just being able to pressure loyalty like in a much meaningful way.
Having a bunch of Shark Typhoons would also make your Veil of Summers more valuable, because then there's actually more things for the opponent to be dealing with, like Abrupt Decays and Jace bouncing and whatever's going on. All right, so it sounds like we have our top four. That was the conclusion of our quarterfinal matches, and we're gonna have Andrew Fiedler with Stinking Show against Theodore Jung playing Temur Delver, and Patrick Green, who we just saw playing 4-color Snowko, against Adam Wallace playing Elves. So let's handle the red match first. Our 1 seed Andrew Fiedler. This is a matchup that's been played also for the better part of a decade. Which side do you think commonly comes out on top here? I have my pick. I think I would like to be on the Delver side.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say we could unravel the answer at 3, but for me, it's a no-brainer. I think this is a matchup that goes it's good for Temur Delver. You just have a fast clock. You've got a lot of disruptive counter magic. You have a number of ways to punish any single misstep from the show and tell side. Now, that doesn't mean that the show and tell player, is going to lose guaranteed here, like we mentioned before. That's just never a thing in any matchup. But it's going to be tough. We're going to have to see a lot of things line up well. We're going to have to see a fast start with maybe a couple pieces of counter magic, or we're going to have to see a longer game where our mana is, pristine, and we're able to just throw haymaker after haymaker after haymaker after haymaker. That being said, the Delver deck is one of the best decks in the format for a reason. I'm kind of excited to see how the matchup's going to play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then on the other side, Snowko versus Elves. This is a case where we're seeing there were it's Dread of Night. Is that the card?
Nope, that's it's Dead of Winter. You're close.
Dead of Winter. Okay, Dead of Winter in the main deck is going to go a long way towards helping out, but I don't know. I believe there were 3 Shepherds in Adam Wallace's build of the deck. That can make things tricky.
Definitely.
As even holding up, I don't know how much discard there is in Patrick's deck. I don't believe it's a ton. And just holding up, but there's the potential to just hold cards in your hand and then go. I mean, not hold everything, but it just at some point in the game, let's say turn 5, you just go Shepherd Glimpse. That could cause a huge problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Elves deck definitely has a lot of really good tactics in this matchup. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I think pre-board game 1 should be in Adam's favor. Maybe the sideboard can help Patrick out a little bit, but there's just so much that the Elves can do if it can set up its mana, then start grinding out the game and maybe slow it down. Like that's also like okay for the Elves side. The issue is that, Adam's deck Patrick's deck game 1 doesn't have too many ways to interact here. I think, outside of Force of Will, Force of Negation, the usual suspects, we're going to have to really lean on having enough disruptive 1-for-1 interaction to maybe get something like an Oko into play, and then even that seems like it's not exactly the game plan that you want to be, because the Elves deck is so good at going wide super fast. It's probably going to have to be a combination of Dead of Winters and Snapcaster Mages, singular, sorry, because there's only one Snapcaster in the deck, to really just hammer down the justice on the green weenie deck.
Okay, so it sounds like we're in agreement on we're picking the lower seeds on both sides. Anyone in chat, if you want to voice your opinions, go ahead and throw it in there, and maybe we'll take a glance at that. I don't think we need a break before we get the top four started. We'll wait a second and hear about that.